All right, very good. We're live.
So we are live.
I am Svetlana Pritzker, intentional creativity coach and artist. And today in my studio is the wonderful, wonderful Julio Valenzuela, crystal design shaman. You are very lucky to see this broadcast. Julio does not show up so much on the internet because he's always busy with clients and creating. So today we're going to learn about his creations. Julio, could you please tell us something about yourself? Where are you from? What influenced your creation? And how do you define yourself? Who are you for our audience?
Okay. Well, I was born in Tijuana, Mexico, and I moved when I was very little. I moved to another area of Baja, which is part of Mexico, that is called San Quintin. And in there were some Indian reservations. So I was like a city boy that got transferred to a local native community. And in there, everything they did, there was no television, no radio. There was some electricity, but not too much.
Okay.
So we have a visitor.
Come in.
So he's asking if he can have a treat. Yeah, I told him yes. Yeah.
COVID times. Work all mixed together, but it's all good.
Yeah.
Life, isn't it?
Tú puedes agarrarlo. Yeah, he's gonna get a treat. He likes marzipan with chocolate. He's gonna go there.
Me too.
Okay, so when I was living in that community, there were agriculture, and they were raising farm animals. So I was living in a farm. And in there, they're also doing hand mining. So hand mining is very different than mining with machines and explosives. Hand mining is where you dig with your hands. You get a bucket of water. You see a stone on the floor. Then you start mining it with water and your hands. You start, digging around it until you get the actual stone and you actually get a complete crystal, like a complete piece. This way you don't bother the stone and the energy of it. So that's how I got started into mining and hand mining. Because I was looking at the Indians doing it and I had no toys, no television, nothing electronic, no technology. So that was the technology that I got exposed to when I was very little. The other thing was that since I was living near the ocean, were shells. So shells like this one, that is very interesting. And minerals like this that come from the ocean. That is also, this is calcium. So coral. And the other stones were just rough stones, like any other stones, like this one. And no carving, no nothing. So just stones. And those were my toys. So that's how I was brought up as I was little. I was playing with the crystals when I was very little as toys. I didn't know anything about energy or anything like that, but I saw some of the shamans in the Indian tribes that were doing healing with them. And they would do attunement, they would meditate with them, they would sing, they were doing chanting and dancing. But I didn't know anything about it because I was not part of the tribe. Until I got a little bit older, they invited me to the chanting and I started learning how to heal. But when I was little, I was just playing with them. I was just digging for the stones and playing with them. So that's how I started into crystals.
That's amazing. We always grow with the environment and we find whatever we find in it. And so you started connecting to the energy of the stones without even understanding that you're connecting to this energy, because you wouldn't play with something that would not call for you, that would not call you in. And I truly believe that every one of us have this soul energy, the call that goes out. It's a vibrational quality that attracts the same quality. So I've spent quite a lot of time with you, and I know your vibrational quality because I'm also an intuitive healer. And so what really attracted me to your personality is that calm energy of inner knowing, the deep wisdom, without big show off. But every time I ask you a question, the question I ask would be here, and the answer would be low, underneath, in the undercurrent of everything, delivering the depths, the resource that inspires me to actually create my own understanding of that what you would give me. So I would always consider conversations with you as if you would give me a pearl of wisdom, a very beautiful, shiny object that I would not know what to do with. And then I would look in all those faucets, all those colors of the pearl, and I would find those connections that you've given me. And first time I had a session with you, it was about my Akashic records, and you said that you will write the books, but not one. You're not going to write one book. You're going to start one, and then it's going to be another. And within the half a year, you're going to have a few books, and then you're going to have many books. And guess what? 30 some books are on Amazon just because you pointed me toward this direction. So I'm really grateful. So what was that pivotal turning point for you? How did you move from being a boy on a farm and then playing with the stones and then chanting with the natives, shaman, into being your own shaman, your crystal shaman? What happened?
What happened is that after my first marriage, because I'm living right now in my second marriage. This is my second wife. So during my first marriage, it was very hard for me to understand many things regarding marriage. First thing that I haven't shared with you, maybe I did, is that my father had many wives. So it's not legal to be a polygamist in Mexico, but back then they didn't care. It wasn't like no laws. So he had 10 wives. So yes, 10 wives. So yes, 10. So I'm one of the sons of 57 children with 10 wives. I'm 55 or 57. And because there were so many of us, I was one of the ones that interacted with all my brothers and sisters and all the wives and so on and so forth. So my dad always took me with him many places. But when it came time for me to get married, I was in a relationship, I wanted to get married. I had so many questions and I was not sure. So my first marriage didn't go that well. And then it ended up being like a 3-year marriage. It was too quick. So after that, I started doing my soul searching. And it was very curious that I went into a library and they were doing a talk about angels. And I was very curious about the subject. I was brought up as Christian, Catholic, that's Mexico, what we have. There's no other religions that are too popular. There are some, I mean, right now, but back then there were not too many. There were only like 2, 3 choices of religion. So my family was Christian, Catholic, like half and half, because we were so many. But actually, my dad was Jewish, but he never shared his culture with anybody. It was a secret for him. He was a Jewish person that got into Mexico when he was very little. He was brought from his country to Mexico via a boat, and he came into Mexico and he was adopted. So being adopted, he was not a very good role model for me because he was not sharing that much. So I didn't know anything about, being a father, being a husband. I had no background as far as that. I had no role models for that. So I wanted to build my own role model, and I decided to reinvent myself. And when I took that class about the angels, that was my starting point. Because in there were so many shamans and healers in that meeting, including some of the Indians of the area. And I was surprised that they were interacting, being native and talking about angels and herbs, and aromatherapy. And then they started showing crystals and harmonizers, like tools that they use to balance the energy, for energy balancing. So I got curious about it. And in there, I met a guy. His name was Gabriel. He's a shaman. And he's actually my mentor. He's the guy that I started working with crystals because he showed me how to weave the metals to grab the crystals. Like he will give me a piece of stone and he will show me how to do like a spider with silver wire and hold that piece of crystal with a wire spider wire and wrapping and so on and so many things like that. And then that's how I started, learning through him. And from there, I took other classes from that same group, like Reiki healing, attunement, meditation, yoga. And that took me to my wife that I'm married to now. That's where I met my wife. She was one of the more advanced students of that school. So she was heavily into yoga, heavily into meditation, Merkava, and so on and so forth. So for me, she was like in a pedestal, like this is what I want to be one day, right? Like I want to be like her. And it ended up that we started dating, and first we were friends, and then dating, and then we got married, after that. So she loves crystals too, and she started showing me some of her stones in her collection. So that's how I got access into more sophisticated stones like diamonds, rubies, and sapphires. But for me, it was more like crystals, like quartz, like more accessible, like not too expensive, and something that I can do my hand mining, that I can go into some place and start digging and find some, or maybe go visit a mine. So Gabriel introduced me to the mining community in my area and in other areas of Mexico. And that's how I started getting my hands into buckets of specimens, that were people that were hand mining and other people that were just like going into mines and caves and digging for stones and bringing those to me. And what can you do with this? And I would just give them either money or if they wanted food. So I started doing trading, and that's how I started getting into materials. And back then, when I wanted to buy something as far as materials, Gabriel was the go-to guy that will connect me to the person that will be selling the minerals. And back then, I always had, my education because I went to school and formally, I'm an engineer. And because of that, I have my passport and my visa. So I can always go across the border because I live near the border. Tijuana is connected to San Diego. Our border is San Diego. And in San Diego, there was this community, there was this Jewish guy that has this large community that sells, crystals, but like wholesale. So he invited me to become one of his sales guys, and he was doing shows on the weekends. So I will go on the weekend to this show. They call them gem fairs. And I went into those gem fairs and I started selling. And he wanted me to be there because I could explain the healing properties of the stone and how it was mine and where can you get it and where will they come from, why the color, and so on and so forth. And that's how I got access into making my own jewelry. That's how I started because they were making actual jewelry, with designers and people from many countries, people from Africa, people from Russia, people from the US. And that's how I got exposed and people from Asia to pearls and other stones that were not accessible in Mexico, but through this person that has this community, his name is Shlomo. So through Shlomo, I got, a connection to my dad's heritage, which is Jewish, right? So I connected to his community. After my dad passed away, I was still connected to that people, and I feel that I have a very strong connection to Jewish people, but I don't know anything about their culture beyond what I see, in books and media and so on and so forth. I mean, I never been a part of a community that has this like ceremonies or anything like that. But I got interested into Kabbalah and I started exploring, and I found some interesting things about, crystals and stones and how they study that and they use them for their ceremonies as well. But as far as healing, I think it was because of that connection to the angels that I really got interested into it, and also that I saw that it will be crossing, boundaries of shamanic tradition, beyond that for healing, and it will actually be helping people, to get their emotions in check because they are energetic, tools that we can use. So that's how I got into it.
Wow.